Talk to Robert today because I think that your story is so remarkable and that somebody might be saved by hearing you.
Very well.
Okay, very well. Let's do it. So you've relapsed publicly several times before.
Every time I've relapsed, it's been publicly.
What do you think's different about this time?
Well, essentially, and I would say this to anybody, is that, you know, it's really, it's easy to embrace hopelessness when things seem insurmountable. And yet, it's actually just a matter of time until all of the elements come together for things to be all right. I mean, I believe that, you know, most difficult situations will resolve themselves if you are persistent and if you don't give up entirely. And that's what I never did. I never gave up.
Do you still get urges to do drugs?
I have not even an inkling of a desire.
That's pretty amazing, actually.
And I'm not vigilant anymore, and I don't do the things that...
And by vigilant, it means what? Every day you've got to...
Well, sometimes, you know, sometimes every day is a problem, too, because here's what I tend to do. I'm either, you know, as what you saw, that beginning clip, and thank you, very glamorous, I appreciate that. Or I also can tend to become so regimented and uptight that people are like, hey, Grandma, should we just put a shawl around you? Why are you so... Because then I'm thinking, I've got to get this right, and either extreme is disastrous.
Tell me, it's in your family, because we've all read that you were given your first pot at 7 years old.
I think it was 7, 8, or 9. And, you know, it's so funny because I become a little bit right-wing about the whole thing. And I think if my son Indio, if I caught him smoking a joint, you know, after the soccer game on the field, I would lock him down.
He's been addicted to drugs since he was about, what, 8 years old?
That's when, yeah, it started that long ago.
And then marijuana was a part of your daily family life growing up.
It was a staple like rice.
Like rice. Carbs. Okay, here we go.
Well, I actually had really good parents, and they were kind of square in a lot of ways, and they were very highly ideal people and artists and did their very best. But I think it was a cultural thing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
But you started smoking crack cocaine.
1995.
1995.
Yeah.
And something called black tar heroin. What is that?
It's something that feels really good and should be avoided at all costs.
Really?
Yes.
It's like a stronger form of heroin than regular heroin?
I don't know about the stronger forms. I just know that that's what I came across in a situation where it's like, hey, here's kind of what we're doing. And I'm looking, there's, you know, my friends, my peers, people who don't seem insane. And they're like, yeah, we're just doing a little of this. And I was like, great. Boy, that feels really good. I would like to do that every 20 minutes for the next, you know. And that's how it happened. It was literally the first time.
Really?
I had no...
You were hooked the first time?
I think so. I had no intention of making my public, my private life and my career so very difficult. And yet I believe, you know, as I sit here today, that I hope it's for some higher purpose, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
Imaginary. Very disconcerting.
Yeah. What was going on?
Cocaine psychosis. That's just, it's one of the things that happens. It's tough stuff. But yeah, that's what was going on with me naked driving around with the rats.
Do you remember the incident where we just had that 911 call where you ended up in a stranger's bed?
That was my house.
That was...
Oh, no, it wasn't. It was theirs.
It was there?
Listen, I'm not, you know, these are common mistakes you make when you're struggling with alcoholism and drug addiction.
So were you drugs and alcohol? You would do drugs and alcohol?
Alcohol wasn't really my thing, but, you know, it's kind of all the same thing. If you are leaning on something, anything that you attempt to control is something that you probably have a problem with, you know? And so when someone says, you know, I really wonder if maybe I should go to rehab. Well, you're a wreck, you just lost your job and your wife left you. You might want to give it a shot.
Yeah.
Iron Man is such a different superhero, though, isn't he? In that he's self-made, he's arrogant in a very appealing way.
Right.
Was that what you brought to it, or was that there?
It was always inherent in the comics. And, you know, Stan Lee, back in the 60s, it was really kind of a Vietnam-era sort of fabrication, you know, and he was under pressure to keep coming up with new characters, and so he kind of did this mosh of things, and who'd have thought all those years later that it wound up being the character that differentiated this universe from other comic book worlds, and here we are, you know.
What difference do you think it makes that he's a self-made superhero?
I think more than anything, I always played it like he's a guy who's in big business that you may or may not have a judgment on. He's an arms dealer. And the metaphoric significance of having a piece of shrapnel from one of your own warheads blow up, and then you actually have to build something to save your own life. I always thought that to me is it's kind of a new myth.
Could you explain the idea behind Ultron? I mean, what is the real fear here?
In Tony's mind, the idea behind a team like this is for the team to retire, because the odds are that one or all of them are going to get bumped pretty soon. So his idea is pretty altruistic. He's thinking, how can I put us out of business and still have a big bouncer at the door of our vulnerable little planet?
And that's why he does what everybody fears, which is unleash this monster. What do you think of the obvious parallels being made between you and Iron Man?
At this point, it's natural, but if you'd asked me in the first Iron Man, I'd be like, "That's me." And now I've realized that of course it's not. You know, I'm not saying that I'm such a fantasist that I felt like I was Tony Stark, but I felt like it was my persona. But none of us are our personas.
But he's becoming a much more likable character as well, isn't he?
I suppose
a better
so.
man.
Yeah, he's becoming a better guy.
In a way that you are as well, I suppose.
Sure.